The alarm bells screamed through the command center of Zilani Prime. Admiral Keith Zor pressed his 6 fingers against his pale blue forehead and stared at the tactical display. Red dots covered the holographic map like a disease. Each dot was a Krex bioship, and each bioship meant death. "How many colonies have we lost?" he asked his aide. 12, sir. The latest reports came from Velnar 4 3 hours ago. Then, silence. Keth Zor closed his large dark eyes. Velnar 4 had been home to 8 million Zilani. Now it was probably just empty rock, stripped of all organic life by Krex bioweapons. The insects had a simple strategy. Arrive, deploy their acid ships, dissolve everything that could live or grow, then move to the next target. The Zilani had tried everything. Their best warships lasted minutes against Krex biocruisers. Their most advanced shields melted like ice under the alien acid. Their negotiation attempts were answered with more attacks. In 6 months, the Krex hegemony had destroyed more Zilani worlds than had been lost in the previous 1,000 years of peace. "Sir," Communications Officer Yelnara called from her station. "The Council wants to know your recommendation." Keth Zor looked around the command center. His people were tall and thin, with skin that changed from blue to purple when stressed. Right now, everyone looked deep violet. They had built a civilization based on art, science, and cooperation. They studied the stars, composed beautiful music, and helped other species solve their problems through diplomacy. None of that mattered against the Krex. "Tell the Council we have 2 options," he said slowly. "Surrender and hope the Krex keep us as slaves, or send the signal." The signal. For 3 days, the Zilani leadership had debated it. A desperate message broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, offering their entire scientific database to anyone willing to help fight the Krex. It would reveal their location to potential enemies, expose their weaknesses, and probably accomplish nothing. But 12 dead colonies made the choice simple. "Send it," Keth Zor ordered. Yelnara's hands moved over her console. The communication array powered up, drawing energy from the planet's core. This message would reach every inhabited system within 5,000 light-years. Message transmitting. "Sir." Keth Zor had written the message himself. "To all sentient species receiving this transmission, the Zilani Confederation faces extinction. The Krex hegemony has deployed bioweapons against our civilian populations. 12 worlds have been sterilized. We estimate 2 weeks before our homeworld falls. We offer our complete technological database, including our advances in medicine, physics, and engineering, to any species willing to provide military assistance. We know this appears hopeless. We know the Krex are considered unbeatable. We ask for help anyway, because we have nothing left to lose." The message went out into space, traveling faster than light through the quantum communication network that connected the galaxy's civilizations. Now they could only wait. The first responses came within hours. The Altarian Republic sent polite regrets. They were dealing with their own border conflicts. The Vegan Trade Union offered to evacuate Zilani civilians for a reasonable fee, but would not engage in combat. The Crystal Collective, known for their powerful warships, replied with a simple no. More responses trickled in over the next day. The Centaurian Federation expressed sympathy, but explained they had signed a non-aggression pact with the Krex. The Sirius Council suggested the Zilani consider relocating to empty systems far from Krex space. The Robotic Synthetic Alliance calculated a 0.03% chance of victory and recommended immediate surrender. Each refusal hit Keth Zor like a physical blow. He had not really expected help. The Krex had built their reputation on being unstoppable. But seeing it confirmed by every major power in the galaxy made their situation feel even more hopeless. On the second day, long-range sensors detected new Krex ships entering the system. Bioscouts, probably sent to prepare for the final assault on Zilani Prime. At their current speed, they would arrive in 10 days. "Any more responses to our signal?" Keth Zor asked. 3 more polite refusals, sir," Yelnara reported. "And 1 strange message. Show me." The message appeared on his screen. "Signal received. Calculating jump coordinates. Earth Defense Force en route. Hold your position." Keth Zor stared at the words. Earth? Run that through our databases. Yell Nara worked at her console for several minutes. No matches, sir. No record of any species called humans. No planet called Earth. No organization called Earth Defense Force. Could it be a fake message? Some kind of Krek psychological warfare? Possible, sir. The transmission origin is scrambled, but it came from outside our local group of star systems. Keth Zor read the message again. It was short, direct, and completely without the flowery diplomatic language used by every other species. Most strange of all, whoever sent it seemed confident they could actually help. Sir? Yelnara asked. Should we reply? Before Keth Zor could answer, alarms began blaring again. The tactical display updated, showing new contacts at the edge of the system. Report, he ordered. Unknown ships, sir. They're not in our databases either. Ship design unlike anything we've seen. Keth Zor moved to the main viewer. The ships were still too far away for visual contact, but the sensor readings were strange. The vessels appeared to be made of metal, rather than the biomaterials most advanced species preferred. Their energy signatures suggested primitive fusion reactors instead of elegant antimatter systems. Strangest of all, they were broadcasting no identification signals and responding to no hails. How many ships? He asked. 12, sir. Much smaller than Krek's biocruisers, but they're moving fast. Very fast. Are they heading for us or the Krek scouts? The sensor operator checked her readings twice. The Krek scouts, sir. They're on an intercept course. Keth Zor felt something he had not experienced in months. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone had actually answered their call for help. But looking at the primitive ships on his screen, he wondered if these mysterious humans understood what they were flying into. Krek's bioships had conquered half the galaxy. Their acid weapons could dissolve any known material. Their psychic fear generators could paralyze entire crews with terror. They moved like living things, adapted to any attack, and never, ever retreated. These human ships looked like metal boxes, with engines attached. Open a channel to the unknown vessels, Keth Zor ordered. Let's find out who these people are. Channel open, sir. Unknown ships, this is Admiral Keth Zor of the Zilani Defense Force. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. The reply came immediately in clear galactic standard. Admiral Chen, Earth Defense Force, we got your message about the bug problem. We're here to fix it. Stay out of our way while we work. The transmission cut off before Keth Zor could respond. He stared at the screen, not sure whether to laugh or panic. These humans talked about fighting the Kreks like they were dealing with a minor inconvenience. Sir, the sensor operator called. The human ships have engaged the Krek scouts. On screen, what Keth Zor saw in the next few minutes changed everything he thought he knew about warfare, courage, and the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy. The human ships moved like hunting animals, using tactics no civilized species would consider. When the Kreks deployed their acid weapons, the humans simply ignored the damage and kept fighting. When one human ship took too much damage to continue, instead of retreating like any rational crew would do, it accelerated directly into a Krek's biocruiser and exploded. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire. The remaining Krek scouts, apparently as shocked as the Zilani, began to retreat. But the humans pursued them, hunting them down one by one until none remained. Then, as suddenly as they had arrived, the human ships disappeared into hyperspace. Keth Zor sat in his command chair, staring at the empty space where two fleets had just destroyed each other. His aide approached carefully. Sir, what are your orders? Keth Zor thought about the message. We're here to fix it. Not to negotiate, not to find a peaceful solution, not to minimize casualties. To fix it, maybe they had summoned something more dangerous than the Kreks. 3 days passed before the humans returned. When they did, they brought friends. Admiral Keth Zor watched his tactical display with growing amazement as ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace. Not the elegant emergence of advanced civilizations, with careful positioning and diplomatic broadcasts. These humans simply appeared wherever they wanted, like they owned the space around Zilani Prime. Count? He asked his sensor operator. 24 ships now, sir? No, wait, 36. They keep arriving. The human fleet formed up with military precision, but their ships still looked wrong to Zilani eyes. Angular metal hulls covered in what appeared to be armor plating. Weapon systems that stuck out like spikes instead of being integrated smoothly into the ship design. Energy signatures that suggested they were held together by pure stubbornness and welding. Any communication from them? Kethzor asked. No, sir. They're ignoring all our hails. That violated every first contact protocol in the Galactic Handbook. When two species met for the first time, there were procedures. Exchange of basic information, establishment of communication methods, discussion of intentions. The humans seemed to consider all of that a waste of time. Instead, they were moving toward the outer system where long-range sensors had detected the main Krex invasion fleet. Kethzor made a decision. Get me a fast courier ship, I'm going out there. Sir, that's extremely dangerous, we don't know anything about these humans. Exactly why I need to go. If they're going to fight the Krex on our behalf, we should at least try to coordinate with them. An hour later, Kethzor sat in the co-pilot seat of a small Zilani scout ship, racing to catch up with the human fleet. As they got closer, he got his first good look at the alien vessels. They were even more primitive than the sensors had indicated. Hull plates welded over obvious damage. Weapon systems that looked like they had been bolted on as afterthoughts. Several ships showed scorch marks from recent battles. These ships have seen combat, his pilot observed. Recent combat, Kethzor agreed. I wonder where they've been fighting. They got their answer when the human fleet reached the Krex formation. The Krex had sent 50 bioships, each one a living weapon grown in their hive worlds and equipped with the most terrifying weapons known to the galaxy. Acid projectors that could dissolve any armor. Psychic broadcasters that filled enemy crews with overwhelming fear. Biohulls that could repair damage in minutes and adapt to any attack. The humans attacked immediately. No warnings, no attempts at communication, no tactical analysis. They simply opened fire with kinetic weapons, actual metal projectiles fired at incredible speeds. The Zilani had abandoned such primitive weapons centuries ago, but the humans used them with devastating effect. Why aren't the Krex acid weapons working? The pilot asked. Kethzor watched in fascination as streams of bioacid washed over human ships with no apparent effect. The metal hulls simply shed the deadly substance like water. Look at their armor, he said. It's not trying to resist the acid. It's designed to let it run off. The humans had studied Krex weapons and built their ships specifically to counter them, while other species tried to create perfect shields or impenetrable barriers. The humans had simply accepted that they would get hit and designed accordingly. A human ship took a direct hit from a Krex biotorpedo, a weapon that could gut a Zilani cruiser. The explosion tore away armor plating and left the hull glowing red-hot. The ship kept fighting. Damage control must be incredible, the pilot muttered. Then they heard the human communications channel. Kethzor had his ship's computer translate from the human language. Bridge to engineering, how bad is that hit? Hull breach on deck 7, fires on 3 and 5, half our weapons offline. Can you keep us fighting? For another 20 minutes, maybe 30 if we're lucky. Good enough. Helm, put us on a ramming course for that big one. Copy that, Skipper. Kethzor stared at the display. The humans were planning to ram their damaged ship into a Krex biocruiser. It was insane. It was also working. The Krex, accustomed to facing enemies who retreated when damaged, had no response to tactics this aggressive. Their bioships were designed to terrify opponents into making mistakes. But the humans didn't seem to feel fear. When the damaged human ship crashed into the Krex cruiser, both vessels exploded in a ball of plasma. The humans on the communication channel barely paused. Wolverine is down. All ships close formation and continue the attack. No mourning for the lost crew. No moment of silence. They just kept fighting. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, the entire Krex invasion fleet was destroyed. The humans had lost 7 ships. As the surviving human vessels regrouped, Kethzor finally managed to establish contact. Human fleet, this is Admiral Kethzor of the Zilani Defense Force. Please respond. This is Admiral Chen. What do you want, Admiral? We're busy. The bluntness shocked him. Every other species he had dealt with used elaborate courtesy formulas. I wanted to thank you for your assistance and discuss coordination of our forces. No coordination needed. We handle the fighting, you stay out of our way, simple. Admiral Chen, while I appreciate your confidence, the Kreks are extremely dangerous. They have bioweapons that can dissolve most materials, broadcast fear telepathically, and adapt to conventional tactics. We know. We've fought them before. That was impossible. The Kreks had only recently begun expanding into this sector of the galaxy. You've encountered them before? Keth Zor asked. 3 systems over. About a year ago. They tried to sterilize a mining colony. We explained to them why that was a bad idea. The casual tone suggested the humans had won that engagement too. But if they had been fighting the Kreks for a year, why had no one else heard about it? Admiral, perhaps we could meet in person to discuss. Negative. We don't do formal first contact procedures. Too much talking, not enough shooting. Besides, we've got your database. Everything we need to know about your people is in there. Keth Zor remembered the offer they had broadcast with their distress signal. They had promised their entire technological database to anyone willing to help. Apparently, the humans had simply taken it. You downloaded our entire database. Your computers aren't very secure, took about 10 minutes, interesting stuff. Your medical technology is centuries ahead of ours. Your weapons technology is centuries behind. We are a peaceful species, Admiral. We don't believe in warfare. There was a long pause on the communication channel. That explains why the bugs were having such an easy time with you, Admiral Chen finally said. Don't worry, we believe in warfare plenty. We'll handle this problem. What exactly do you intend to do? Find every Krek ship in this sector and destroy it. Then we go to their home systems and explain why attacking civilians is a bad idea. Basic stuff. Keth Zor felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in his ship. The humans were talking about genocide. Admiral, surely there must be a diplomatic solution. They sterilized 12 of your worlds, killed millions of civilians. Diplomacy doesn't fix that kind of problem. But if you destroy their entire fleet, their species might learn not to murder civilians for fun. If they're smart, they'll surrender. If they're not smart, they'll keep fighting until they can't fight anymore. Either way, the problem gets solved. The communication channel went quiet. Keth Zor sat in his pilot seat, staring at the human fleet, as it prepared to jump to hyperspace. He had called for help because his people were dying. Help had arrived in the form of a species that seemed to consider total warfare a normal part of life. They fought like they were born for it, talked about destruction like other people discussed the weather, and showed no fear of enemies that terrified the rest of the galaxy. The humans were everything the Zilani were not. Aggressive, militaristic, and utterly without mercy for those who threatened the innocent. Sir? His pilot asked. Should we return to base? Keth Zor watched the last human ship disappear into hyperspace. Yes, and send a message to the Council. Tell them our prayers have been answered. Should I mention that our saviors might be more dangerous than our enemies? Keth Zor considered that. The humans had casually downloaded their entire database, ignored every diplomatic protocol, and announced their intention to wage total war against the Krek's hegemony. But they had also answered a desperate call for help from complete strangers, lost 7 ships protecting people they had never met, and asked for nothing in return except to be left alone to do their job. No, he said finally, don't mention that. Let the Council figure it out for themselves. Dr. Kethvar had always considered himself a patient scientist. In his 300 years of life, he had catalogued over 2,000 species, written 17 books on alien biology, and served as the Zilani Confederation's chief xenobiologist. He thought he understood how life worked in the galaxy. The humans broke every rule he knew. Computer, display all available data on species designation human, he said to his research terminal. No data available in Zilani databases, the computer replied. Display data from Galactic Council Species Registry. No records found. Kethvar rubbed his temples with his 6 fingers. In 3 days of searching, he had found absolutely nothing about humans in any official database. It was as if they had appeared from nowhere to answer the Zilani distress call. But they had to come from somewhere. And if he was going to understand these mysterious saviors, he needed to study the evidence they had left behind. Computer, display, all intercepted human communications from the recent battle. Hundreds of recordings filled his screen. Kethvar had been listening to them for hours, using the Zilani translation software to convert human speech into something he could understand. What he heard disturbed him more with each passing hour. During the battle, he had recorded a human ship taking massive damage. Any other species would have retreated or called for help. The human crew's response was different. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7. Life support failing. How long can we keep fighting? Maybe 10 more minutes. Good. That's all we need. Target that big one and ram it. Aye, sir. It's been an honor serving with you. They had flown their crippled ship directly into a Krex bio-cruiser, killing themselves to destroy the enemy. The other human ships barely paused to acknowledge their sacrifice before continuing the battle. What kind of species considered suicide attacks a normal part of warfare? Kethvar pulled up another recording. This one was from after the battle when human damage control teams were working on their ships. Reactor 3 is leaking radiation all over Deck 5. How bad? Enough to cook anyone who goes in there. Suit up, we need to fix it before the next fight. Sir, the suits won't help much. This is the bad kind of radiation. I know, but if we don't fix it, the whole ship might explode. Get me 3. Volunteers. The recording showed that all 12 crew members in that section had volunteered immediately. Kethvar played the recording 3 times, checking the translation. Humans volunteered to expose themselves to lethal radiation. For the good of their ship, they were willing to die slow, painful deaths. Computer analyze human ship construction based on sensor readings. The technical data was almost as disturbing as the behavioral patterns. Human ships were built like weapons. Not elegant vessels that could also fight, but crude machines designed for one purpose: destroying enemies. Their armor was inches thick, their weapons were oversized, their life support systems were designed to function even when half the ship was destroyed. Everything about their design suggested a species that expected to fight constantly and die violently. But the strangest thing was what the ships didn't have. Computer, compare human ship amenities to standard galactic fleet designs. The comparison made Kethvar's skin shift from blue to deep purple with stress. Human warships had no art galleries, no meditation chambers, no diplomatic meeting rooms. Their crew quarters were tiny metal boxes barely large enough for a single being. Their recreation areas consisted of rooms where they practiced combat techniques. Other species built ships for exploring, trading, and living. Humans built ships for war. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Admiral Keth Zor appeared on the communication screen, looking exhausted. Doctor, I need your analysis of these humans. The Council is asking questions I can't answer. I'm afraid I have more questions than answers, Admiral, but I can tell you what I've learned so far. Kethvar transmitted his data files. The humans are unlike any species we've encountered. They appear to be persistence predators from a high-gravity world. What does that mean exactly? Most intelligent species evolved from prey animals or scavengers. We developed big brains to avoid conflict. Humans evolved from hunters. They developed big brains to hunt more efficiently. The implications were terrifying. A species with advanced technology and predator instincts. There's more, Admiral. I've been analyzing their ship construction materials. Kethvar pulled up the metallurgical scans. Their armor is made from refined iron with carbon additives. Primitive by our standards, but incredibly dense. It's not designed to stop attacks. It's designed to absorb incredible amounts of damage and keep functioning. Like they expect to be hit repeatedly. Exactly. But here's the disturbing part. Their life support systems can function in environments that would kill most species. High radiation, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures. Maybe they come from a harsh world. Admiral, based on their ship specifications, their homeworld would be classified as a Class D Deathworld, uninhabitable by any known species. The silence on the communication channel stretched for long seconds. Class Tuthin? Admiral Keth Zor finally asked. Are you certain? The evidence suggests their planet has gravity 3 times normal, an atmosphere containing poison gases and weather patterns that could destroy cities. They didn't just survive on such a world, they thrived enough to develop space travel. HFY pulled up his final analysis. Admiral, I believe we are dealing with a species that evolution specifically designed for warfare. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. The survivors became something the galaxy has never seen before. What exactly are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying the Kreks picked a fight with the wrong species. Humans don't just fight when they have to. They fight because that's what they are. Every human is a weapon that learned to think. Another message chimed on HFY's terminal. This one was marked as intercepted Kreks communications. Admiral, we're receiving Kreks transmissions. They're confused. The translation software converted the Kreks biospeech into text. Primary hive. This is Scout Leader Zex Moore. The soft skins from Zilani Prime have been replaced. Replaced? Explain. New species has arrived. They ignore fear weapons. They ignore acid weapons. They ram damaged ships into our vessels. Impossible. No species fights without retreat patterns. These do. They call themselves humans. Request immediate reinforcements. Denied. Soft-skin species do not require full hive fleet response. Primary. Hive, I have lost 12 bioships to creatures who laugh while dying. Request permission to withdraw. Withdrawal denied. You will complete sterilization mission. The transmission ended. HFY stared at the screen. The Krek scout had asked permission to retreat. In 6 months of fighting Zilani forces, they had never once retreated. Doctor? Admiral HFY asked. What's your recommendation? HFY thought about everything he had learned. Humans were predators from a death world who considered suicide attacks normal tactics. They had technology designed for warfare and psychology shaped by millions of years of violence. They had answered a call for help from complete strangers and asked for nothing in return. They were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever produced. They were also, apparently, the most honorable. My recommendation, Admiral? Stay out of their way and be very, very grateful they're on our side. And if they decide we're a threat? HFY looked at his analysis one more time. Ship designs that prioritized weapons over comfort, crew members who volunteered for lethal radiation exposure, battle tactics that included ramming attacks. Then, we surrender immediately and hope they believe in mercy. Do you think they do? HFY remembered something from the communication intercepts. When the human ship had rammed the Kreks cruiser, the crew's final words were not about glory or victory. They were about honor and duty. I think they believe in protecting the innocent, Admiral, which means as long as we remain innocent, we're probably safe. And the Kreks? The Kreks have killed millions of civilians. I don't think the humans consider them innocent. Admiral HFY's image flickered as another alert sounded on his end. Doctor, long-range sensors are detecting more human ships. Lot more. How many? Over 100. And they're not just warships. We're seeing converted civilian vessels, cargo haulers with weapons mounted on them, even what appear to be mining ships. HFY felt his skin shift to the deepest purple possible. Admiral, I think the humans are about to show the Kreks what total war looks like. Is that good or bad for us? For us? Probably good. For the galaxy? HFY paused. I think we're about to find out what happens when you anger an entire species of apex predators. Captain Marcus Torres had seen a lot of ugly things in 20 years of military service. The refugee camps on Cygnus 7 after the mining disaster. The aftermath of the plague on New Geneva. The burned colonies along the rim where pirates had gotten too bold. None of it had prepared him for what he found aboard Krek's hive ship Zarmor. Jesus Christ, whispered Sergeant Liu from behind her combat helmet. What did they do to these people? Torres stepped carefully through the bioship's corridors, his boots squelching on the living floor. The Kreks built their ships from grown tissue, everything pulsing with alien life. But it was what the insects had done to their prisoners that made his stomach turn. Zilani civilians hung from the walls in organic cocoons, their bodies twisted by Krek's bioviruses. The infections were turning them into living weapons. Their peaceful blue skin had turned black. Their large eyes now glowed with malevolent red light. and their 6 fingers ended in razor-sharp claws. "Control, this is Torres. We've got a problem." "Admiral," Chen's voice crackled through his radio. "What kind of problem, Captain?" "The Kreks have been using captured civilians as weapons. Bio-warfare stuff. The infected are turning into some kind of combat drones." "How many?" Torres counted the cocoons, lining the corridor. "At least 200 in this section alone, maybe 1,000 on the whole ship." "Pull back, Captain. We'll hit the ship with nuclear charges and sterilize the whole mess." "Negative, Admiral. Some of these people are still alive, still human. Still Zilani." The silence on the radio stretched for 10 seconds. Finally, Admiral Chen responded. "Captain, those civilians are infected with an unknown alien virus. The logical response is containment and sterilization." "Copy that, Admiral. But we didn't come all the way out here to give up on people who need help." Torres looked at his squad. 12 human Marines in powered armor, carrying enough firepower to level a city block. They had volunteered for this boarding action knowing it was probably suicide. The Kreks bioships were designed to kill intruders with poison gas, crushing gravity fields, and organic weapons that grew from the walls. "Listen up," he told his team. "We're going to do this the hard way. Non-lethal weapons only. Our job is to save every civilian we can." "Sir?" Private Chen asked. "What about the infected ones trying to kill us?" Torres watched as one of the cocoons began to crack open. A Zilani civilian emerged, but his peaceful features had been transformed into something monstrous. Black veins pulsed under his skin, his eyes burned red, and his mouth was full of needle-sharp teeth. "We save them too," Torres said. "Stun weapons only. We figure out how to cure them later." The infected Zilani let out a shriek that hurt Torres's ears even through his helmet's audio dampeners. It charged at them with inhuman speed, claws extended. Sergeant Liu hit it with a neural disruptor. The creature dropped, twitching, but alive. "1. Down," she said. 999 to go. The next 3 hours were the longest of Torres's military career. His squad fought through 12 decks of the bioship, stunning infected civilians, cutting survivors out of cocoons, and dodging organic weapons that sprouted from the living walls. They lost 2 Marines to Krek's acid traps, and another to a infected Zilani that nearly tore through his armor, but they kept moving forward, saving every civilian they could find. "Captain," Admiral Chen's voice came through the radio again. "Status report." "We've cleared 8 sections, Admiral. Rescued about 300 civilians so far." "At what cost?" Torres looked at his squad. Half of them were wounded, their armor cracked and leaking. They were exhausted, running low on ammunition, and facing increasingly desperate Krek's defenders. "We've taken casualties, Admiral, but the mission continues." "Captain, I'm ordering you to withdraw. We'll nuke the ship from orbit." "Admiral, with respect, we're not leaving these people." "That's a direct order, Captain." Torres thought about military regulations, chain of command, and the penalties for disobeying orders. Then he thought about the Zilani civilians they had already saved, and the hundreds more still trapped in organic cocoons. "Copy that, Admiral. We'll continue the mission." He switched off his radio before Admiral Chen could respond. "Sir?" "Sergeant," Liu asked. "Did you just ignore a direct order from the Admiral?" "What I did was decide that some things are more important than following orders." They found the ship's biocore 4 decks down, a pulsing mass of alien tissue that controlled the Krek's vessel's systems. Surrounding it were dozens more cocoons containing Zilani civilians in various stages of infection. The Krek's defenders made their final stand here. 6 warrior drones, each one 8 feet tall and armed with bioweapons that could melt human armor. They fought with the desperate fury of creatures protecting their most vital systems. Torres and his squad fought back with equal determination. They had come too far and lost too much to give up now. When the last Krek's warrior fell, the bioship began to die around them. Without the control signals from the warriors, the living walls started to decay, and the organic weapons stopped functioning. "Liu, get the civilians out of those cocoons. Martinez, see if you can find the antidote to whatever they've been infected with." "Sir, how do we know there is an antidote? Because if there isn't, we'll make one. It took another 2 hours to evacuate all the survivors." Torres carried the last civilian, a young Zilani female barely out of her adolescent molt, to the rescue shuttle himself. Her skin was starting to turn black from the infection, but her large eyes still held intelligence and hope. "You're safe now," he told her in broken Zilani. "We'll fix this." Back aboard the human fleet, Admiral Chen was waiting for him in the medical bay. "Captain Torres, you disobeyed direct orders." "Yes, Admiral. You risked your entire squad on a mission with minimal chance of success." "Yes, Admiral. You ignored tactical wisdom and endangered the entire operation." Torres looked around the medical bay. Human doctors were working alongside Zilani physicians to treat the rescued civilians. Some of the infected were already responding to treatment. The young female he had carried out was sitting up, her skin returning to its normal blue color. "Yes, Admiral, I did all of those things." Admiral Chen stared at him for a long moment. "Why?" "Because that's what we do, Admiral. That's what makes us human." Chen was quiet for several seconds. Finally, she nodded. "The Zilani High Command wants to give you their highest medal for civilian rescue. The Galactic Council is calling what you did unprecedented. Apparently, most species would have written off those civilians as acceptable losses." "Most species didn't grow up on Earth, Admiral." "No, they didn't." Chen looked around the medical bay. "Captain, the Kreks have started targeting our civilian colonies. Apparently, they think terrorizing our non-combatants will force us to negotiate." Torres felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How bad?" "3 colonies hit so far." "No. Survivors." The medical bay went quiet. Every human in the room had family somewhere in the colonies. Civilians who had thought they were safe from the war. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "New orders from Earth Command, Captain. Diplomatic immunity is revoked. Rules of engagement. Total war." Torres nodded. He understood what that meant. Until now, the humans had been fighting a limited conflict, trying to protect the Zilani while minimizing casualties. They had followed the galactic rules of warfare, showing mercy to prisoners and avoiding civilian targets. The Kreks had just changed the rules. "When do we begin?" he asked. "We begin now, Captain, and we don't stop until every last Krek's bioship is destroyed." Torres looked at the rescued Zilani civilians. Some were still recovering from their infections, but they were alive. They had families who would see them again because human Marines had risked everything to save them. The Kreks had made a terrible mistake. They had shown the galaxy that they were monsters who used civilians as weapons. But more importantly, they had shown the humans that there could be no negotiated peace with creatures who murdered the innocent for fun. Torres had seen what humans could do when they were fighting to protect strangers. Now the Kreks were about to learn what humans could do when they were fighting for revenge. The Kreks' homeworld had never seen an enemy fleet in its skies. For 3,000 years, the insectoid species had projected their power outward, sterilizing worlds and enslaving weaker species. Their bioships had conquered half the galaxy. Their hive cities housed billions of warrior drones. Their orbital defense platforms could destroy entire fleets. None of it mattered when the humans arrived. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the EDF Retribution, watching the tactical display. As her fleet dropped out of hyperspace, 237 ships representing every vessel Earth could spare for this operation. Warships, converted civilian craft, mining vessels with nuclear charges welded to their hulls, and cargo ships packed with Marines. Behind them came something unprecedented in galactic history: a coalition fleet. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving signals from 67 allied vessels. The Zilani contributed their remaining ships, and it looks like we've got volunteers from 18 other species." Chen nodded. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about human tactics and human principles. Species that had remained neutral for centuries were suddenly finding the courage to stand against the Kreks, not because they thought they could win, but because the humans had shown them that some fights were worth having regardless of the odds. "Signal. All ships," Chen ordered. "Begin the operation." The attack began with a nuclear barrage that lit up the Kreks' homeworld sky like a second sun. Orbital defense platforms that had stood for millennia vanished in balls of plasma. Bioships that tried to launch from the surface were vaporized before they could reach space. But Chen wasn't interested in simple destruction. This was about sending a message to every species in the galaxy. "Launch the marine transports," she ordered. "The real battle would be fought on the ground." Captain Torres led the first wave, his transports screaming through the atmosphere toward the largest hive city. Around him, 200 human marines checked their weapons and tried not to think about what they were flying into. "Listen up," Torres announced over the squad channel. "Remember why we're here. The bugs killed 3 of our colonies, murdered civilians who never hurt anyone. Today we make sure that never happens again." The transport shuddered as Krek's ground fire struck the hull. 30 seconds to drop zone, the pilot announced. Torres looked out the window at the alien city. Below, massive biostructures stretched toward the sky, pulsing with organic life. Krek's warrior drones swarmed through the streets like angry ants, their acid weapons ready for battle. It should have been terrifying. Instead, Torres felt calm. This was what humans did. They protected those who couldn't protect themselves, and they punished those who hurt the innocent. 10 seconds. 10. The transport doors opened and Torres jumped into the alien sky. The battle for the Hive City lasted 18 hours. The Kreks fought with desperate fury, using bioweapons that could melt steel and swarm tactics that had defeated entire fleets. They called up reserves from deep underground, awakened dormant warrior breeds, and even deployed their queen guards in a final desperate gambit. None of it worked. Human marines moved through the bio-corridors like they had been born for urban warfare. When acid weapons dissolved their armor, they kept fighting. When psychic fear broadcasters tried to paralyze them with terror, they laughed and charged forward. When swarm tactics overwhelmed their positions, they detonated nuclear charges and took entire city blocks down with them. But the strangest thing from the Krek's perspective was what the humans did with prisoners. When Krek's warrior drones surrendered, something that had never happened in their 3,000-year history, the humans didn't kill them. They established prison camps, provided medical care, and even shared their food supplies with captured enemies. Torres found himself explaining human policies to a Krek's hive commander who had been captured in the city's biocore. "Your species killed millions of our civilians," Torres told the insect through a translator. "But we're not going to kill your civilians. That's the difference between us." "Why?" The Krek's commander clicked. "We showed no mercy to your kind." "Because that's what mercy means, showing it to people who don't deserve it." The commander's compound eyes stared at Torres for long seconds. "Your species is confusing." "Yeah, we get that a lot." By the second day, the battle was over. The Krek's homeworld's defenses were shattered, their fleet destroyed, their warrior castes decimated. But instead of the mass slaughter most species expected, the humans did something unprecedented. They began reconstruction. Engineering ships arrived and started building refugee camps for displaced Krek civilians. Medical ships deployed field hospitals to treat wounded enemies. Supply ships brought food, water, and basic necessities for a population that had just lost a war. Admiral Chen met with the surviving Krek's leadership in what had once been the Supreme Hive's throne room. "You have 3 choices," she told them. "First, you can fight to the last drone and watch your species go extinct. Second, you can surrender unconditionally and accept human occupation of your worlds. Third, you can agree to our terms for peace." The Krek Supreme Queen, an ancient creature who had ruled for 6 centuries, regarded Chen with her multifaceted eyes. "What are your terms, human admiral? No more sterilization weapons, no more attacks on civilian populations, no more conquest wars. Your species will join the Galactic Council and submit to international law. In return, we help you rebuild your worlds and integrate into galactic civilization. And if we refuse?" Chen gestured toward the window where human ships filled the sky like metal stars. "Then we keep fighting until you change your mind." The Queen was quiet for several minutes. Finally, she spoke. "For 3,000 years, we have conquered through fear and strength. We believed this was the only way to survive in a hostile galaxy. The Galaxy's only hostile if you make it that way, Chen replied. Your species defeated us with superior firepower, yet you offer mercy to defeated enemies. You suffered terrible losses, yet you treat our wounded. You could have destroyed our civilization, yet you offer to help us rebuild it. The Queen's antennae twitched. We do not understand your ways, but we are willing to learn them. The surrender ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had lived in terror of the Krex for millennia watched as the insectoid empire formally submitted to human authority. But more importantly, they watched as human engineers began building schools and hospitals in former Krex territory. 3 months later, Admiral Chen stood in her quarters aboard the Retribution, writing her final report to Earth Command. The Krex hegemony has been dissolved, she wrote. Their bioweapons have been destroyed, their warrior castes disbanded, their conquest fleets converted to civilian use. Casualties: 2,047 human military personnel, 156 allied personnel, approximately 45,000 Krex military. Civilian casualties: 0. She paused, thinking about that last number. In the largest military operation in human history, they had managed to avoid killing a single non-combatant. The former Krex territories are being administered by an international coalition, she continued. Reconstruction is proceeding ahead of schedule. The Krex civilian population is adapting to peacetime governance. Several hive cities have requested human technical advisors to help establish democratic institutions. Another pause. Democracy was a foreign concept to the Krex, but they were learning. Recommendation: mission accomplished. The threat to galactic peace has been neutralized. Request permission to return home. She transmitted the report and walked to her quarters viewport. Outside, human and alien ships worked together to escort Krex civilian transports to new homes on safer worlds. Former enemies were becoming reluctant allies. A chime announced an incoming message. The holographic image of President Martinez appeared in her cabin. Admiral Chen, congratulations on a successful operation. Thank you, Mr. President. The Galactic Council has formally requested Earth's membership. Apparently, they're impressed with our approach to conflict resolution. Chen smiled. We have a funny way of making friends. The Council is also asking if we'd be willing to serve as peacekeepers for other conflicts. Seems like half the galaxy has territorial disputes they can't resolve. What's our response? President Martinez grinned. I told them we'd think about it. After all, somebody has to keep the peace out here. Chen looked out at the stars, thinking about the future. Humanity had spent centuries fighting each other before finally learning to work together. Maybe they could teach the galaxy the same lesson. One more thing, Admiral, the President said. There's a parade waiting for you when you get home. The whole planet wants to thank you for answering that Zilani distress call. Chen thought about Admiral Keth Zor and his desperate message 6 months ago, a plea for help from a species facing extinction. She wondered if he had known what he was unleashing when he sent that signal into space. Probably not. But it didn't matter now. The Deathworlders had arrived. The Force was here to stay, and the galaxy would never be the same.